All right. Hello, everybody. My name is John Harder, if you don't know me, and this is Defining Your Brand podcast. I am here with Sandi. Sandi, I have known for many years. I don't even know how long it's been, but Sandi is a hair salon owner, and I, many years ago, was referred to her and have been going to her salon ever since. So, Sandi, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sandi Ravenscraft. I own Inspire Salon. We have been in business for 14 years. I own Inspire with my husband, Chris, and we have very different roles at the salon, of course, but it has been definitely a learning experience for us doing it together. I have been a hairstylist for 20 years and just recently stepped out from behind the chair. I'm not doing hair anymore. So John is, yeah, John is now going to, I believe, maybe my sister or whoever really at the salon, probably, because all my stylists are amazing. And so I am definitely starting on a new venture of figuring out what it means to just be a business owner without being a service provider within my business. Because for 14 years, I was a service provider and also a business owner. So that is my biggest thing right now that I'm trying to figure out what that role looks like. But I'm very excited about it. Yeah. Very excited about the new venture, if you will say.
Yeah, because that's like very new, right?
Yeah. So this is what is this? February finally? Oh gosh. Okay. I was thinking it was still January, like the longest month ever. Yeah. So November. It's only been a few months since I stepped out, or actually just 2 months, I guess, since I stepped out from behind the chair. Mm-hmm. Very new. And I'm learning a lot. There are days where it's harder because I'm used to being very productive. I would go into the salon for, probably an 8-hour, 9-hour shift behind the chair. I would be booked from the moment I came in, double booked till the moment I left. And that would be how I would produce. I would bring in money. I would do hair. I was also, of course, doing a lot of business stuff behind the scenes, but probably not to my best capability because I was still providing services. So yeah, now my days are very different. Like I have time for stuff like this, which, normally would not be as easy to find time to do because my schedule would be pretty packed. So I'm learning how to embrace my new flexibility. And of course, figuring out how to focus on projects and I tend to take too many things on at once, and then I feel like it's all or nothing. I'm either operating up here or I'm like sitting on the couch playing a game on my phone.
So let's talk. I'll stop you for a minute. Let's talk about what did the start look like? Like, how did you get your start in hair? Did you jump into business? Did you know you wanted to own a salon? What did that look like?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this morning when we were kind of talking about what we were going to talk about. And, it's one of those things where it's like, how far do you go back in your story? But it's like so many things just kind of go into how, you got into doing what you were doing. And so I was really young. I don't know that I always knew I wanted to do hair, but I knew that I wanted to be involved in beauty somehow. I was always into makeup and hair and stuff like that. To say I didn't thrive in the educational system, maybe that would be the best way to put it, because I was a very creative child, and I struggled with my outlets for creativity at school, and I struggled staying interested in things that frankly didn't interest me, and so I struggled in high school. Once I was finally done, it was like, okay, what do I do now? And luckily I had very supportive parents, and they understood that university wasn't really like in my plan, so I decided to go to hair school. I think I was only 19 years old when I went, and got out quick, worked hard, got out quick, and I started working at a salon with mostly older and experienced stylists, which was interesting. I was the youngest person that worked there. I learned a ton, and but yeah, there was always that kind of thing in the back of my mind where, of course, when you're young, it presents itself as like, I could do this better.
Yeah. Right.
We'll get to why I was wrong about that later, but but yeah, there was always kind of that thing, which I kind of thought everybody had, because when you're young and naive, you just kind of think, oh, doesn't everybody want to have their own business?
Mm-hmm.
And so an opportunity presented itself where, unfortunately, the salon I was working at, just things were not going great. And I just kind of thought, well, I guess, if there's any time, then the time might be now. And so with just the right amount of naivety and ego
Right.
at 24,
I don't. How old are you? 24.
Yeah, I was 24, and I'd only been doing hair for, I don't know, 4 years fully, if even that. And I had built a really good clientele over the time. I would say I was a pretty natural hairstylist. It came to me pretty naturally. I mean, I got some good training with some experienced stylists. But, I started to build my clientele, and I thought, hey, let's do this. And Chris and I had just gotten married, and John, my husband and I have very different personalities.
Right.
But the funny thing is, when I was younger and I had all this drive, I would say to him, what do you want to do? What's your passion? What's your, because that's me. Everything I do is passion. And he would, I don't know, and he'd dabble in things and whatever. But I remember specifically this conversation we had when I finally pushed him far enough that he said something. He's like, I don't know what I want to do, but I want to work for myself. I want to have my own business. And he had dabbled in a couple little side, businesses where he was shooting weddings and editing wedding videos and did some band stuff. And so, I do think, regardless of how different we are in our personalities and the way we approach our business, we obviously both had that desire.
Yeah.
So when I said I wanted to open a salon, he was on board. And surprisingly enough, wanted to even work there. And I said, what will you do? And he said, I'll manage, and I'll work at the front desk, and which, that's what he did. So yeah, 24. And, like I said, I just kind of felt like, oh, we can do this, So we dove in, and I'll tell you from there, it was hard.
Right.
Yeah.
Building a business in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, as you know, because you're a business owner, I think there were many years of struggle, for sure. Just everything from financial struggle to staffing struggles, just stress and finding time to run your business, and realizing, this is where the realization came in that, oh, okay, so I can't do this better.
Yeah.
At least not yet, and oh, this is why, it gave me a whole new appreciation, obviously, for the person I had worked for.
Yeah.
And how, decisions aren't, black and white, and they're not easy when you're taking people into account, and financial stuff into account, and, that kind of stuff. So yeah, we learned a lot quick, and but we kept going. And I think the biggest question that we would always kind of ask each other when we would get to the point where we would be like, is this working? Should we keep doing this? It would always come back to like, what else would we do?
Right.
I mean, I was a hairstylist, and that's what I was good at. And like I said, he kind of jumped in with me in this, and we wanted it to work, and we also thought that we could do it. So I think that was just the thing that kind of kept us going, and just putting one foot in front of the other and taking one day at a time, basically, which is all you can, sometimes 1 hour at a time.
Yes. And I think that like whether it's to our detriment or to our benefit, I feel like as creatives or entrepreneurs or whatever it may be, this idea of there's what else can I do? It kind of helps drive that, and maybe even whether or not maybe there's a point where we should, you know, push the eject button or start over or ask for help or whatever it may be. There's just that thing inside that if you're not wired that way, that you won't understand. And I think
Absolutely.
but I think that maybe what is helpful, if you can eventually make it successful, it's what pushes you through those moments of, weeks, days, or even hours, as you said.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, I mean, obviously, yes, I do think at some point, you have to know when to hang it up. And I think that's what's difficult for business owners is that, we don't want to fail.
Right.
But, there are certain things that like, I mean, there were times where it was causing us a decent amount of stress, and it was like, is this worth it? But it was our livelihood at the time, whether or not it was really financially stable or not. It was, it was what it was. It definitely, I would have to say, along with many other things in my life, though, it shows you definitely who is there for you. We had a ton of support. I'm not going to pretend like we did this by ourselves. Between family and friends and staff and just, all the people along the way, whether it be, emotional support, financial support, whatever the case may be. We've had tons and tons of support. And I think over the years, what happened is obviously refined my relationship with God a lot. And, I had to work on my trust and all that kind of stuff. And so I think what happened over time is it made me realize that if it did fail, we would be okay. Because, I mean, for us, at least we had family, we had people that, would take us in or whatever the case may be. So like I had to tell myself that, and honestly, still to this day, I have to tell myself that, like, you will be okay, no matter what happens. And sometimes in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. And
Yeah.
that's something that takes time to develop.
Yeah. I think we just probably for people like you and me, we don't like to ask for help, or we don't like to, it's hard to want to say, okay, can you, do something for me? Because we want to, for me, I'll speak for myself. I like to be able to say I did that, or, and maybe it's a pride thing, but I think that, yeah, if we can remind ourselves in those moments that there is someone there or there's a safety net. And kudos to people that don't have that safety net, because I don't know how they do it. I mean, it's hard enough knowing that you have help, but for people that don't, I don't know how.
I agree. And that's why I say, this is definitely not something we got to on our own, where we, in where we live, of course, we're surrounded by family and friends and stuff. We have people to help us with our children and help us. I have my sister and my mother-in-law both work at the salon with us. So yeah, I agree. And that's the thing, is I think there's probably a lot of people out there who don't have maybe that much support where they are. But I do think, though, in general, most people would be okay when you take the sting out of how it would feel to fail.
Right.
What people would think. So that was my thing. Like early on, I was so young, that I heard the rumors from people who would say, I heard that, oh, she's too young, and oh, she doesn't have enough experience. And so, of course, those early years where it was a struggle and where I didn't know if we would be able to open our doors the next day or pay our rent or whatever, there was that sting in the back of your mind, like, oh, they're going to be right. you know, and oh, it's going to be embarrassing or it's going to hurt, you know, whatever. And I think once I was able to let go of that, and I was able to tell myself, I think the thing that really helped me get past that was I finally was able to tell myself, but you're the one who did it. You're the one who tried it. You're the one who pushed forward, you know. And so regardless of whether or not they would have been right, I had to tell myself, but you tried, you took the risk, you know, whatever. And they didn't, you know. So that was something that I had to kind of tell myself, can we pause for a second? Because like I told you, I was wondering what an emergency was going to look like. What do you want? Not right now. No, because I need you to stay here with Rowan for now. When I'm done. When I'm done. Yes. But you have to be quiet. I'm so sorry.
No, you're fine.
Clearly that was not an emergency.
This is why I don't do it live, so we can cut stuff like this out.
Oh my gosh. Unless she's like trying to mouth words to me and I'm like, seriously, I don't know what you're saying. Oh,
Unless
okay.
you're bleeding or on fire, don't.
Right? What part of emergency do you not understand? Oh my gosh.
But that, I mean, speaking of having a business, I mean, that's your life, you know, you know,
Put out fires and
what?
I said put out fires and
Yes.
and solve problems. And that's what I told somebody, I told one of my stylists at the salon the other day, I said, I feel like my life is problem solving and figuring out what my children are going to eat next. Because it's like somebody's either asking me to solve a problem or feed them, really. It was kind of a joke, but, you know, because the washer was on the fritz at the salon. And it was like, oh, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to unplug it and plug it back in.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Talk about the life of a business owner. I mean, personal life and business life always just seems to bleed together, and, you know, you figure it out. And yeah, sometimes you just have to do that, and interruptions come and you have to tend to them. And I think, and probably what more could prepare you for business than life, you know, because
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, you know, there were times where the problems felt so big, you know, and they felt like it was the only thing that we could focus on, and, you know, sleepless nights and stress and, you know, and of course, like, we're lucky to be in a position with our business now where, well, first of all, we've dealt with so many things over the 14 years that now when a problem arises, it's like, okay, you know, we've either had this problem before or something similar, or, you know, and we don't immediately jump to the, oh my God, what are we going to do? You know, it's like we now have the luxury of being a little more comfortable in our business, that we're able to deal with problems, you know, a little on a I would say a better level, you know. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing too with business, is that, you know, your personal life doesn't stop. And so over the years, I have dealt with a lot of things personally, whether it be, you know, death or fertility issues, which was a huge one for me that took its toll and was very hard to balance, you know, business and personal at that point. You know, and just things along the way, you know, just not being happy with certain things in my personal life that you try really hard not to let them have an effect on your business. And sometimes I do and sometimes I don't, you know. But I also think that a lot of those things have definitely contributed to the leader that I am today and who I'm continuing to try and be. Because without those things, I would not be the leader I am today. Let's just put it that way. Because, you know, at 24, being a leader, you think pretty much means just telling people what to do. And
right.
you want, you know, and you just want them to do what you want them to do. And you want them to do how you want your business to be how you want it to be. And so, you know, at 24, I was naive and I was like, you know, well, I don't understand. Why wouldn't they just do it this way?
Yeah.
So, those, I mean, I would say night and day in the 14 years of being a business owner. Not only am I a completely different leader, but I'm also, I would say, pretty much a different person in general.
Yeah.
It's, softened my edges for sure. And I think it's also helped me in my personal life as well.
Well, speaking of being a completely different person, you've had a journey over the last couple years, and if you're willing to talk about that, I'd love for you to share.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's funny because, like I said, with things all being intertwined, I mean, it definitely, this whole journey uh, has had an impact on me being a leader as well. So yeah, 2 years, well, I guess a little over 2 years ago, um, I decided to undergo weight loss surgery. I struggled with my weight pretty much my entire life. I mean, there were times where I would say I was thin. I didn't think I was, but I was looking back. But I always struggled with my weight, and on top of that, struggled with addiction,
Mm,
um, which is where this all comes in. I think a lot of people don't connect that.
yeah.
Um, I had a drug problem in my teens, and I thought, oh, I thought I'd beat my drug addiction, which I did.
Right.
But I think at such a young age, you don't realize that you're an addict. You're
Yeah.
still an addict. And so my addiction transferred to something more acceptable,
Hmm.
I guess, meaning food, because like
You got to
you're
eat.
eating food, right? You got to eat, and you eat food in front of people, and they don't think it's weird. But if you're like, forgive me, it was like snorting cocaine in front of somebody, they're not going to think that's okay. You know what I mean? So, like that. So yeah, I transferred my addiction to food, and for the better part of almost 2 decades, I was obese and unhappy, and with myself, and of course, that takes a toll on your self-image. It takes a toll on your mind. You tell yourself things
Yeah.
that most likely aren't true. Well, I know now weren't true, about what people think of you or your worth or things like that. But it affected me on a personal level, personal relationships, but also professional relationships in my business, because when you're operating from a place where you think you're not worth it, or you don't have this worth because of the way you look or the way you feel, you're going to feel like other people feel that way about you, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
Um, so I decided to do something about it. I had weight loss surgery, and it was one of those things where until I decided to do it, I hadn't even considered doing it.
Mm,
But I was at a point in my life where I was done. I was desperate. I was done. I wanted to change so bad. I had had success in the past. As you know, I lost large amounts of weight,
yeah.
and gained them back, you know. But the thing I will say looking back on it, I want to tell people is that, at the time I felt like such a failure. There's nothing like losing weight and gaining it back and having everybody, it's just such a thing that's out there. It's like you can't hide it. Everybody sees it. But it definitely set me up for the success that I'm having now, because I learned something new each time.
Mm,
The one thing I learned was, no matter how much you think you've changed, there can always be something waiting around the corner to challenge you and to say, oh, that little thing is still there, that little tendency to overdo it. Um, and so I think the first time I learned, oh, okay, well, you can gain weight back.
yeah.
um, and the second time, I think same thing. I learned something that time as well. And so this time it was one of those things where um, I was, you always think you're ready. Of course, I mean, of course I wanted to lose weight,
Sure.
but um, something was different this time. I don't know if it was just a culmination of all the things I had learned and all the times I had misstepped or failed. And there was something different this time. And um, I'm kind of one of those people with the things that I've struggled with business and personal and stuff along the way. and how I continue to work on my relationship and my trust with God is that I kind of know, like, you kind of start to realize when things fall in place. It's not to say you don't have to put work into it, you know what I mean? But, you know, things were kind of lining up as far as having this done. And I was lucky enough to find an amazing surgeon who said some really important things to me that have still stuck with me today. One was that the surgery was a tool. It
Mm.
was that was going to help me to lose the weight and continue to be successful. That it's not obviously, because one of my hesitations is that along the way I had experienced people who had weight loss surgery and gained significant amounts of their weight back. And I told my husband, I said, I don't want to go through this big thing, a surgery and all that, and then have it not be successful or work for me or gain my weight back. And so one of his other biggest pieces of advice was, you're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to be an A+ student. That's what he told me, which I've never been an A+ student in my life. So, I was like, oh, okay. But to me, what that meant was you're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. You're going to have to, really. And so I did. Something clicked. I started to, first of all, I used the tool as it was intended to. And then, he encouraged me to start working out. First, it was just walking almost immediately, actually, in the hospital. And, it was like walk 10 minutes a day and then walk 20 minutes a day and then do 2 20-minute walks a day. And then, so I did it. It was cold outside and I bundled myself up and I walked and then when I went in, he said, okay, now you can start. You can go as hard as you can. You work out 30 minutes a day and cleared me for exercise. And like I said, I working out for me was actually something that at the times when I was losing weight or being healthy, it was always something I actually quite enjoyed, which I know is not the case for a lot of people. But so I took him to heart and I started working out. I was still taking walks. I started doing some strength training. I did what I could. At this point, I was still over 300 pounds. So as you can imagine, you have some limits. You have some things that you have to do, but you know what? It doesn't mean you can't do something. I just kept telling myself, you do what you, which is hard for me because obviously, I just want to be up here right away.
Well, I feel like, again, going back, that's in your nature, that always wanting that sense of excellence. But and I would say to you that I believe that probably not probably, but the reason why you've been successful at the weight loss journey is probably relates to that same reason why I can see the success happening in your business, is that you just have this striving for excellence, wanting to do your best. And obviously, just like in business and in life and everything, you get knocked down and you have setbacks. And but yeah, I'm sure that the same thing that drives you in your business is the same thing that's driving you in this, and that
absolutely,
again, just drawing those parallels, that life prepares you for business, and it kind of is this weird, as an entrepreneurial life, like, is almost intertwined,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's like when I try and tell my story, it's almost like, oh gosh, where does it start and where does it all, and it all just kind of goes in together because of how many things really have set me up for the other, and even so now that I got so into my working out and what I was doing that I decided to become a group fitness instructor, which was something that was, I have to say, never on my radar. Like,
it's a big jump from the life that I should say I wouldn't have foreseen this when I met you. And
no,
that's pretty amazing. Like, that's a huge achievement.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things too that that contributes to the kind of like the evolution of my mind and my growth is just like, you have to be open to um obviously, different places that um God wants to take you. I would say, it's not that black and white. I think we've talked about that before. I don't hear the audible voice in my head that says this is what you should do next. You know what I mean? But it's like it's a lot of little things that kind of come together. And for me, it was this one particular workout that was kind of the driving force behind my success. It was like one of those workouts that made me feel strong and made me feel powerful. I looked forward to doing it. It was like in the moment. It was the time where I could, like, nothing else was there. My mind, it was one of the only times my mind could shut off and I was in the moment. Um and same thing, kind of like I said with my weight loss surgery, it was one of those things where, like, it wasn't even there until it was, a training popped up and I said to my husband, I think I'm going to do this, and of course there were the questions. Can I do this? Because, like, I still, even though so in total I'd lost, over like 175 pounds, which I know to some people is probably a staggering amount of weight.
Oh,
It is. Yeah. But, the thing is it happened quickly, because of course the weight loss surgery does help the weight come off pretty quickly. And so my mind was not, and maybe still isn't sometimes, caught up with my body and how much I had grown physically, and how much work I'd put into working out and growing my cardiovascular fitness and my physical fitness, my strength. And so there were still those questions, of course, can I do it?
sure.
Am I strong enough? Am I fit enough? Can I talk while I work out to tell people? Can I even, does anybody even want to hear me do this? I
And
don't,
I've
you
seen
know what I
you
mean?
do it, and you can do it because you speak very confidently when you are leading a class. I've seen those videos.
Well, and so, yeah, I've surprised myself. Honestly, I've shocked myself, really, is what it is. But, I think that it does kind of, like, as far as leading, you know what I mean? And it's interesting because in the short time that I've been doing this, I've only been teaching these classes for 7 months. It has actually helped me, well, vice versa. It has helped me a lot in my leadership skills within my business.
Yeah.
And then also my leadership skills within my business have helped me with my teaching because, any given day you're dealing with so many different types of personalities. And that rings true when you're doing a group fitness class as well. You have the people who are, they know what they want. They come in, they're going to work at a high level no matter what. You have the ones who are cautious and need a little, like, they need a little hand holding. You have the ones who are just kind of like, I'm just here, I'm just doing it. I don't, you know what I mean? And no matter what you say, they're just going to be at this level. You know what I mean? And that's the same thing in business. I have a staff of, how many people do I have now? 12-ish, And so there's so many different personalities, and, you have to figure out how to talk to each one and how to appeal to each one and keep each one engaged. Now, in a group fitness class, it's interesting because it's like on steroids. You know what I mean? Like, I've had 14 years to figure this out in my business. And, like, when I go into a class, it's like, it's a 55-minute workout. And it's like, you better figure out as soon as the music comes on, it's like, but I think that's one of the things that I like about it is that I can't overthink it. I prepare for it beforehand, obviously, but in the moment when the music comes on, I just got to go.
Right.
And I got to teach and I got to give them an effective workout. And I think that's what I like about it because I'm like, me, my overactive mind just
Right.
has to be in the moment. It has to be present,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, this whole journey over 2 years has been, I honestly, I don't know if I even know how to explain, the impact that it's had on me personally, in my mind and um, but also my relationships with other people and the realization that of course, nobody else except for me tied my worth to my weight.
Mm.
um, Even though I, thought people did, that, no, they didn't. Um, and so, there's been so many realizations. And then of course, just like the fun stuff of the physical ability to play with my kids and have more energy and fit in an airplane seat, ride roller coasters, like all these little, we like to call them in the weight loss community, we like to call them NSVs, non-scale victories.
Mm.
And they're very important to celebrate because, the scale is not always nice.
No, and the scale's not always
It's
true.
not always an indication of the work that you're putting in. It's just not, And so along the way, you have to celebrate all these little moments, these things that maybe somebody who has never struggled with their weight, of course, would never really understand. But I
Yeah.
also think, so that's true in business. It was hard in the beginning to celebrate the little victories because the big things were so big.
Yeah.
Um,
I think we
but
see like, oh, this person being this successful on social media, or my bank account's not where, I want it to be, or I don't have as many appointments as I want. Like, I feel like those are our real life scales,
Mhm.
and those aren't always indicative of how much work we're putting into something. And so, yeah, I think that being able to celebrate anything small is important. I know that it's not something that I'm very good at, that I I've tried to get better at, but I'm always thinking beyond, the immediate. But I think it is important to celebrate those.
And I think too, like I'm the same way. We've talked, I mean, trust me, like, we have mark off extra time when John came in for a haircut because, we talk.
Mhm.
It's nice now though, honestly though, even though I'm not doing your hair anymore, we actually have more time to do these things. We actually met for coffee after all these years when we kept saying we were going to. Um, but yeah, I think that I am one of those people who sometimes I have to reel myself back in because I'm always on to the next thing, or I'm always way too far in the future, and sometimes I don't, which I have to embrace a little bit because that's part of who I am and part of why I am successful. But um, I think I have to celebrate these moments that we're in a lot more, and I've been doing that a lot more, trying to live in the moment. And also, I think looking at the bigger picture sometimes is in the moment, like in our business where we work on appointments and clients and stuff like that, and somebody cancels and leaves a big gap on your book. This happens to my stylists, and it's money. It's their money, and I understand, that they're upset, but we have to remind them like it's part of the business, and let's look at the grand scheme of things. As far as like being busy and all those kinds of things, there's certain things that we have to take. Um, we have to think about: is there something we can do to make it better? If there is, then yeah, let's do it. But there are certain things within any business that you just have to, you know, got to brush off
Yeah,
and move on and keep going forward. At
yeah,
such as life.
yeah. And
Yeah, I think. No, go ahead.
filling in those too, I think something that I've tried to work on is filling in. Now, this is a literal sense, an appointment falls through on a booking or whatever it may be. Okay, so how do we fill in that space with something else? Because I think in the past and sometimes in the present and on a bad day, I'm not great at, okay, that fell through, let's fill it with something else that can push us forward. Instead, we have a tendency to kind of wallow in it a little bit and think, so and so but fell through, but we don't know what they're dealing with. We don't know why they fell through, and so we just have to kind of build this resiliency to on. And just like you spoke, that parallel of you can't get in your head, and you just have, like, for the workout, you have 55 minutes to, okay, just go for it. So, okay, here's an appointment that left 55 minutes open. I got to go in, think on a whim. Okay, what am I going to replace this with? What am I going to do instead that's going to further business?
Yeah. And that's, I think, yeah, there are times like I'm not going to, well, one thing that I think is important to me, is one of my values that I kind of hold dear is, I want to be authentic. And so, when I do something like this, well, I'm not saying I do it all the time, but when I talk to people about my business, or if I do have some opportunity, I always, it's so hard because there's so many things you want to say to people.
Mhm.
you know, I don't want anybody to ever look at me and think, oh, look at her, she's got it all together. No, I like yesterday, I don't know, I couldn't figure out what to do. So I just, I mean, I did. I like, well, I did. We had a meeting like in the morning, and then I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just like didn't do anything.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So it's like, but yes, there are times where it's like, you most of the time
Mhm.
you got to think like, okay, yeah, this is an opportunity, and what can I do? And I try to tell my stylist that too, even though it's hard because there is a financial thing tied to it, whether we want to talk about it or not. You know what I mean? When you work in a business where you work on appointments and you have clients and stuff, it just is what it is. Um, but yeah, there are opportunities. There's opportunities to get something done that you couldn't have otherwise gotten done, or honestly, rest maybe. You know what I mean? Because maybe in that moment you really needed rest.
I think there's
And
a difference between um, resting with purpose and resting in the like, I'm not going to do anything.
yes, and then yes, they are completely different. So yesterday, I was resting without purpose, and I was frustrated with myself. You know what I mean? um, And but yes, there's definitely times to rest with purpose. And I have to say, the funny thing is, I feel like I used to be better at that.
Mm.
But usually it kind of goes the opposite. I feel like maybe you weren't good at it and then you taught yourself how to be good at it. But I think over time, what happened was, um, life got so busy
Mm.
that there weren't as many moments to relax.
Yeah.
And then when they did come, I was like, I should be doing something. I should
Right.
be doing something. I should be doing something, especially when you're a person who, wants to just live at this high productivity level all the time. Um, and so I've been really good lately, just reminding myself, like, no, it's okay. Like, you have a couch for a reason. You have a house for a reason. You know what I mean? Like, you have to rest. You have to rest your mind. And there's only a few things that help me shut my mind off. And, so sometimes you just got to do them. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think that some days I'm much better at finding those opportunities and saying, oh yeah, okay, I can do this or I can do that. And then other days, of course we all we let the negative ride a little bit, and,
Yeah.
you know, we gotta, uh, but I think the more you practice it, the easier it is to snap yourself out of it.
Mhm.
Just like the trust thing that I talked about, the one thing that I feel like, God just keeps working on me with. Um, in the beginning of our business, when a problem would arise, it was like immediately, it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And it was stress, and it was tears, and it's scared, and it was all these things. And it would take forever for me to pull out of it and say, okay, all right, all right. You know what I mean? Now it's like, um, every once in a while, I'll have a brief moment where I'm like, oh, God, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like I snap out of it so quick.
Right.
Where sometimes I don't even go there. I don't, I just say, well, okay, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be okay, and we're going to figure it out. But that takes time, and if that's what I could tell anybody who's either just starting a business or maybe not, maybe they're 5 years in. Even at 5 years, we were still, it was so funny because at the beginning, people would say, oh, I heard like if you make it 2 years, then you're good. And then if you make it 4 years, then you're good. If you make, I'm like,
That's
what is this magic number?
right.
Like,
Yeah.
what's the timeline? Because I need to know. Because even 5 years in, we were still struggling, Um, and of course, I'm not gonna ever sit here and say that you made it, because with business, that's not how it goes. Like, with businesses that have been around forever and close, or you kind of go in and you think, oh, okay, this place isn't hopping like it used to, or whatever. You have to evolve, and you have to make sure that you're enjoying the moment, you're enjoying the fact that you have built this thing and it's successful, but also what's changing and where do we need to go? Because I'm in an industry that is going through a lot of changes right now. And staying relevant is a big deal. And with the onslaught of social media, which, we could do an entire probably, month-long podcast on how much it's affected life. It has affected expectations in the beauty industry, with all the beautiful yet filtered and highly doctored pictures of hair and the expectations of what is achievable in a session of doing hair, and also for the budget that you have has completely blown up, and so learning how to manage all that in our business, and how do we go forward, and how do we stay relevant, how do we keep people happy in an age where we are one of the only types of businesses left that gets that much uninterrupted time with somebody. I shouldn't even say it's uninterrupted, because everybody has their phone, but you kind of have somewhat of a captive audience, in your chair, because they can't go anywhere. And with all the technology, unfortunately, speeding up cutting or coloring hair has not really happened. So, people are there for a while, and you have some time with them. But also expectations have changed, just like which we have talked about in your business as well, with photography, and how everybody has a nice little camera on their phone, and everybody is a photographer these days, So
always be thinking. That's the other thing. You always have to be thinking ahead, which can drive a person crazy too, because you're not just trying to be good enough at what you do. You're trying to be better than yourself and better than everybody else, and then you feel that pressure of, well, you have to be that way, and that can be enough to drive a person crazy and have meltdowns. And you mentioned earlier too about failures and setbacks and all of these kind of things, and I know that as we've talked about how successful you've been in the salon and how successful you've been in your weight loss journey. I think that for me personally, I've looked at successful people and thought, gosh, man, they're always successful and they never have a setback. And, how can I be there? And it makes me, and I'm sure it makes a lot of people feel alone in what they're doing and feel like failures at what they're doing, and it makes them want to give up. Can you speak to instances in your life or businesses or your business where there's been a setback, or just that didn't work, got to move on type of scenario?
Absolutely. I mean, gosh, there's so many, of course, along the way. I mean, with the salon, it's just been, I think I probably thought at the time there was, a lot of failures, but looking back, they're just learning things. And I would say, with the salon, the things that I've learned the most is, keeping people around too long. It's time for them to go, and the effect that they have on your culture and your business. I give people chances, probably, I don't want to say too many, because I like to give people chances, but there's a point where you just have to say, like, this person's not right, for your business. And sometimes it's not, there have been a couple really negative times, but there's also been some times where it's just like, this person is good, but they're not a right fit for us, and that's hard to tell people, but it's the truth, but I would say, so here's my thing about, I briefly started a boutique. I say briefly because it was very brief, but I it was one of those things that, it was getting real popular. People were doing these, little boutiques. They were selling clothes online, and I'm like, hey, I like clothes, and I feel like same thing. I feel like I could do this. You know what I mean? And luckily at the time we were in a position where it wasn't a huge risk. We weren't going to open like a storefront, do it through online and in my house and whatever. And so, we went forward with it. And I mean, I went to the retail trade shows and bought clothes and made a little boutique in my basement and, started my group and did all these things. But, you know, um, there were red flags in the beginning, and things that you kind of, I think that's the thing with being an entrepreneur. It's like it's hard to know when to push forward
Mhm.
because things are never going to be easy. Like if they were easy, everybody would do it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So kind of knowing when to push forward and push through those things or not. And so, I just, it wasn't what I wanted it to be.
Mhm.
And so, I think what happened is that I couldn't make it what I wanted it to be. You know what I mean? I couldn't find the clothes I wanted to find. Obviously, being a woman who lived her life obese for 20 years and had a total of 2 stores to shop in.
Count them too.
um, yeah, it was very important to me to be able to offer my clothing in all sizes. And unfortunately, the manufacturing, like the wholesale clothing world, has not caught up to that.
Which is shocking to me.
Shocking because of how far we've come, and there's a lot of retailers. I mean, Athleta and Old Navy, and people that are just like, they've all, a lot of them have really embraced this whole like, hey, we have to stop being so, you know inclusive. Like we have to be more inclusive with sizing. I was shocked to find that I could not find anybody who carried their clothes in all sizes. And so from day one, I felt like I was compromising, and I should have known then. I should have known then that it wasn't the right time or it wasn't the right thing for me.
Yeah.
So it took a while. In the midst of it, I kind of started it, and then, then I had this detour with my group fitness thing. Which kind of came up quick, and I was like, and it was way more consuming than I thought it was going to be in the moment. And so the boutique did kind of go on the back burner,
Mhm.
and I left it there for a while, saying it was on the back burner, and then, I just kept kind of saying maybe, 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 and then I did briefly. I found actually a company who made clothes in all sizes. And I was like, hey, oh my gosh, wow. And I liked their clothes. And I was like, so I was all like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go forward with this company. I'm going to do this. Well, I made that decision, and 2 days later, I got an email they were going out of business.
Was that a sign?
Yeah. And so I think, am I one of those people who's like, oh, these big signs?
Yeah.
But honestly, I think it was, you know what I mean? I think it was the thing that I needed to say, this is not right. This is not, it's not what you wanted it to be. Luckily though, I'm in a place, um, I'm in a place where I was able to be okay with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It didn't happen overnight. There were those subtle little feelings of, no, no. There were those subtle little feelings of, I don't even want to say failure, but just like, did you even give it a go? Like, did you even, but, also what came up was, I was going to stop doing hair. That was a decision that was, being made, and my
Stop
role,
actively cutting hair. Like,
stop actively cutting hair. Yeah. Right. And so that was a decision that was being made, and my role was going to change at the salon, and just felt like, even though that may seem like, oh, you have more time to do it, it really, was something that I was like, these are a lot of big things,
right.
and I got to let it go. And I did, and it felt good, honestly, to have it off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is, I think, and I know to some people that probably doesn't seem like this big, failure or whatever, but when you constantly have people telling you that, oh, everything you do, you're successful at, and you're this and that, and it's like, it's one of those things where you kind of, but like I said, my thing is I want to be authentic, and I want people to know that, like, this is life. And when you're an entrepreneur, like, the hardest part of starting a business is starting a business. Like, you know what I mean? Like that decision to like just take the risk and take the jump. You know, I don't know if I want to say it's the hardest part, but it's the biggest jump that you have to make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's something that I know people who mull over in their minds forever and maybe never do it, you know? And so I took the jump and wasn't right and whatever. You know what I mean?
Life went on.
Like, yeah. And that's the thing is life goes on. And I think like I did a little kind of 10-minute talk at this hairstylist thing, you know, on the fear of failure. One of the things that I remember finding through my research was this little quote about how we tend to we excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for? We believe that people think about us and what we're doing and and they don't. People are thinking about themselves and they're thinking about their day and what they have going on in their life. Nobody is sitting, maybe one or two people who are close to me are maybe wondering like, oh, I wonder if Sandy is still doing the boutique, but not in a judgmental way. They're just wondering if I'm still doing it. Nobody's sitting at home saying, oh man, Sandy's boutique just like, you know, crashed and burned. Like nobody cares.
No.
And so
they're probably not thinking about it at all. I mean,
we're not thinking about it at all, especially this day and age when we just like, everybody's so busy. You know, so we have these people, they in our head, you know what I mean? And I've learned to just like, as soon as that inner dialogue starts, I'm like, who are these people?
Right.
People that you're worried about what they're going to think. They're not real. You know, they literally are not real.
You are
so,
at the end of the day. Like,
and honestly, if you really can think of somebody, then you really need to think about what that relationship is and why you're worried about whether or not, you know, why you're worried about what they think. You know what I mean? And is it real? Because of course, you know, I have to worry about what people think when it comes to my business. I have to worry about my employees. I have to worry about my clients and stuff, but that's different. That's more like, are they happy? Are they satisfied? You know, those types of things. But when it comes to, you know, making decisions and stuff like that, you got to try and put that stuff out of your head, because if you're, you know, everything that you want, your happiness and things that you want for your life, it lives on the other side of fear, you know, like really it does. And when we really break down fear and what it is, which, you know, is something we could talk about forever, it's just not real. You know what I mean? Like there's physical fear, which is real, you know what I mean? But like fear of failing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, unless the risk is like death, you know, you might want to rethink that, but you know, really, you got to think about what is the risk and am I willing to take it?
Yeah,
you know?
I heard someone talking about this once, and it was interesting to hear. She's like, people are always afraid of what's on the other side of the door. And she said they're so afraid of what could be on the other side of the door that they don't even walk across the room to open the door. So there may not be anything on the other side of the door, and you've created this idea of what it could be that you're not even making the action of even facing whatever it may be, which 9 times out of 10 is probably nothing, you know? So it's most of the time I feel like our fear is, and I've heard this and you know, it's always easier said than done, but fear is not real. Like the feeling, like you said, is real. But it's really, and I was listening to another podcast where they were talking about the mind-body connection, and we will think on something so long that your body actually can't decipher between what it's seeing and because you see something and then you think about it, and then because you've thought, you know, your brain has received what you're seeing, then it feels that reaction. So like the same thing is that if you're visualizing this thing that's not even happening, your brain is still reacting to this vision that you're creating that something is real, and then you still have that physical reaction to something that's not there, you know? And
Yes.
so it's crazy to think of how many things are we afraid of that are not true.
Well, yeah, and I think the lies that we tell ourselves, you know what I mean? And like, and we don't even know that they're lies. That's the thing, is like because over time we tell ourselves something so much that it becomes our reality, or it becomes like you feel it in your bones. Like when, people will say something like, I love when people say, "Oh, that's just my personality." But is it?
Right.
Because like, or is that just something you've told yourself over time to protect yourself and to
Mhm.
keep you from having to do the things that you're scared of?
Yeah.
Because that's what I see on a daily basis, for
Yeah.
sure.
I remember being in a group of people once, and we were in a group setting, and one of the girls said, "Oh, I hate talking in front of people. I'm not good at it," or whatever. And I remember thinking, had you not said that, and if you just spoke confidently, even if you were terrified of speaking in front of people, I would not know any different. So why don't you say it? Because I remember I used to tell myself, and I'd tell other people, I would say, I hate making phone calls. Like if I had to call a client, I would say I hate talking on the phone. And eventually, I think one day I just thought, do you really hate talking on the phone, or have you just said it so many times that you've created this
Yeah.
hate of talking on the phone when it probably wasn't true? So I would say, oh man, I can't wait to call this client. It could turn into something, or I can't wait, And so it, I'm not too much of I don't know. I think some people can get into the hype of the mindset, but there is a line where it's true. And I think that fear aspect is very real.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, is like, I don't want to minimize anything that, because fear and anxiety and things like that, they are real. But I do think our inner dialogue and things like that, the things that we tell ourselves, the lies that we tell ourselves, you know what I mean? And then of course everything we're surrounded with these days coming in, there's so many things coming in. It's like that really has an effect on, you know, your choices that you make, or the things that you say about yourself. And so like, one of my favorite examples is which I'm sure Chris will love it, to tell the story, but like his thing is, forever he would say, I don't like confrontation. I'm just not good with confrontation. I'm just, you know what I mean? And like, for a while you just think, okay, yeah, maybe some people are just a little better at saying what's on their mind and some people aren't. But then one day I just like, it just came to me and I said, does anybody like confrontation? I mean, I guess unless you're like, drunk and you want to get into a bar fight or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? But it's like, I don't like confrontation, but the thing is like, you can't, to me, that's an excuse for not doing something that's necessary.
Right.
And so those are the types of things that I think we just continue to tell ourselves something so many times until we believe it.
Yeah.
When really it's like, oh, okay, but is that real?
Right.
And I've had to do that to myself so many times. I mean, I'll have full blown conversations in my head, with somebody,
Yep.
the other person's voice too. And then I just have to stop and I have to say, what? That's not even real. Like, and then of course you go and have the conversation and it goes nothing like it went in your head.
Yeah.
Most of the time, lucky enough, it goes better.
Right.
Sometimes it's gone south, but it's like, I just have to stop myself and say, you're making all of this up, and it's affecting, and then it affects you, and it affects, your everyday decisions, and sometimes to the point where it's debilitating for people, and it keeps them from taking risks or going forward, or even being being productive in their personal relationships or their professional relationships, or whatever it is that they are struggling with.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, fear is something that I really have really spent a lot of time thinking about, and thinking about what it really means, and if it's really real,
Yeah.
I mean, no, if there was like a snake right in front of me right now,
True.
the fear would be real. Even though I've probably only seen like a couple snakes in my entire life, in real life, I, for some reason, am terrified of. So,
Well, Sandi, I appreciate you coming on here and talking. And I know, as we've said before, we could talk for hours.
yeah.
Do you have like anything new that's coming up? Obviously, you stepped back from being behind the chair. You are doing more in the gym. Anything else going on right now, as if that weren't enough?
Right. Of course, it's never enough. No, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me is really defining my role, now, because it's funny, like I had to tell myself, I finally got to the point where I had to tell myself, this is a big thing.
Yeah.
Even though I've been running my business, I've had this whole other thing, doing hair, being tied to doing hair, that was keeping me from doing it fully. And so I had to remind myself, you don't know how to do this.
Mm.
Just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I basically had to tell myself, this is a new career almost. Even though it's something I've been doing, it's a new role, it's a new career, which I've never done before. And so I think just figuring out that role, how to be effective, develop my team, which is what I want to do, support my team, be a good leader, a good example. Spending more time with my kids has been awesome.
Yeah.
Because it's something that was a struggle, owning a business when I had kids. That was not a luxury. Not to say I didn't spend time with my kids, but you know what I mean. It was different, it was different. And so having time, more flexibility to just like, go and do little things at my oldest daughter's school, or just spend a day with my 4-year-old is nice. And then of course, I'm doing advanced training right now for my group fitness. And then I'm also going to be taking on another format. I'm going to be teaching a mindfulness format, like a yoga, Tai Chi, and Pilates
Cool.
format. So yeah, I mean, it's like I tell Chris, hey, when I tell you that I want to do something else, just tell me no. He never tells me. He never tells me no.
I know.
Never tells me no. You know what I mean? But I think the thing is like, sometimes you kind of just know what you can take on and what you can't. But I'm always kind of like, I either got all these things going on or nothing.
Right.
I never have nothing going on. But yeah, I don't know. Enjoying life, figuring out my new role, figuring out where to take my business, and then also, hopefully, I'm hoping stuff like this will be part of my future. Talking to people about life, about business, about anything that they want me to talk about, because I've had a great life, overall, because that's what you got, you know what I mean? Like I'm here, I'm healthy, I have healthy kids, I have great business life, family, whatever, you know what I mean? So all those things that I've been through, they're just pieces that, and I would sharing my story, if it even just helps one people,
One people.
one person, one people. I was going to say that helps people, but then I was going to say, even if it just helps one person,
right,
whatever part of my story, whether it be the weight loss part or the business part or the fertility or the whatever, the addiction, anything, because that's the thing is sometimes you only meet people for moments, you know what I mean? And it's hard to tell them your whole story, So, but yes, thank you so much for, I could talk forever.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think this is great and important, and I'm excited to see the different types of people and the different types of businesses that are represented. But I do think there's certain things that all entrepreneurs have in common that connect us, for sure.
Where can people find you online? Where, like, what you're doing? They can follow your journey, your story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, Inspire Salon, you can find us at Salon. Well, I say that, but our website is saloninspired.com. And of course, we're on Instagram, Inspire Salon STL, and Facebook. And, we're always growing and always looking for new clients and new stylists. And we do fun photo shoots that you can find on our Instagram. We're getting ready to do another one now. And then my journey, my weight loss journey, I'm at Shrinking Sandi, Sandi I, on Instagram. Yeah. And, I try and I don't post as much as I should. You get into those moods where it's like, oh,
no, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, but yeah, you can read a lot about my journey there, and I'm really trying to, just be authentic and open, and I'm always willing to share anything with anybody. I'm pretty much just an open book.
Awesome. Well, I love that. And then thank you again for coming on and sharing everything, being an open book and sharing with everyone. So,
Yes, thank you. And if we ever want to do it again, I'm sure we can think of a million other things we can talk about.
oh, excellent. No bit.
Thank
All
you, John.
right. Thank you so much. Okay, hold on.